Grimcast is a podcast of creepy stories from around the metro. I'm your scaredy cat host, Antoinette, and I love a good ghost story. In our first episode, recorded under quarantine, we're talking to Jammi, a professional tarot reader and game designer. They've designed games including Balikbayan, Returning Home, a cyberpunk game of magic and Filipino folklore, and Oathbreakers, a tarot-based game inspired by Vertigo comics from the 90s. Jammi is also a wonderful cat parent to Merlin, Chassis, and Cassandra. Welcome to the show, Jammi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay! So, what started your interest in stuff like this? You know, like things weird and spooky.
Yeah, back when I was young and I had the luxury of thinking it wasn't real. In Singapore, that's where I grew up. We used to read a lot of ghost stories. It was super popular when I was young. So they had a lot of these like collected ghost stories and books. And if you were a cool kid, you were up to date on the latest volume. So that's how I first got into ghost stories and stuff. But Singapore ghost stories are really boring. So I'm not going to share any of those today.
Okay. Well, then, getting right into it too. Do you believe in ghosts? You mentioned that you had the luxury of not really believing in these kinds of things. Where are you now with that?
Yeah, now, oh gosh, it's really changed over the years. I definitely do believe in ghosts. I think because I've also, in recent years, I'm bad with numbers. I think it's about 7 years now. I've been a professional tarot reader and Reiki healer, and Reiki shaman. And so ghosts tend to come up in that. And so I have had too many encounters to like really deny it's not a thing. And I will say that the actual, like a lot of the time, it's usually just like a duende or something, just being a little shit. Like it's usually, I don't want to say they're being mean. They're just playing around. But 99% of the time, it's something else that's also related. Like it's also supernatural in a way. It's also not quotation mark normal. But an actual, or it could be like what the soul has left behind, what the spirit has left behind. It's like, do you remember that movie Ju-on, the Japanese movie?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And that idea of like, you can leave behind a really strong emotion like that really does tend to happen. And it tends to look like the person who left it behind. So I've really encountered that a lot. But, that being said, there can be ghosts and spirits who are trapped. And I think the actuality of that is like 0.003%, but it depends where you are. So like in Manila, I think it's a little lower, but still it's much higher compared to if you were in other countries.
Or maybe like in quieter places, like outside of Manila or something.
It's way more likely to happen.
So you think that like how busy a place is sort of, is inversely proportionate to how spooky or like how haunted it's going to be?
Yeah, because I think it's also like, a lot of these spirits, it's hard to be around humans because we give off so much energy and we're so disruptive. I know, right? Right. So they usually like quiet places. So that's why they usually tend to, or, also like nothing has helped them move on. Sometimes someone can do it by accident. They don't even have to be like someone who's aware of what's happening. Sometimes we just help a ghost move on without realizing it. So that's also another thing.
That's really interesting. So when would you say was the first time you had a creepy encounter? And I'm assuming it wasn't when you were a child growing up in Singapore.
No, because really, I'm not joking. It's so sterile there. Okay, to be fair, maybe something happened, but the ghost stories are so weird and boring in Singapore. So it's like, it's unlikely. But my first real experience, so I moved to the Philippines when I was like around 10. And then in high school, we had a retreat. And so I remember we were going to stay for 2 nights. And I thought, I'm going to go to bed early in the first night because for sure on the second night, we're going to not go to sleep. So I was way too mature for my age. So I went to bed early. And I could hear like behind me, there was like a treehouse situation. My classmates were hanging out, laughing and nagkukwentuhan, they were talking to each other. And then, so this is the cheesy part, but I have to say this part, it's important. So right before I went to bed, I was thinking, oh, I wish Matthew was here. And, oh, well, just kind of lonely, blah, blah, blah. Like that was my last thought as I was drifting off to sleep. And then like, I don't remember how much time passed. I just remember that I felt the bed shift. That sensation when someone's sitting next to you on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I kind of woke up because I'm really sensitive to that. So I kind of woke up and I was looking around and I was like, am I asleep? And I could see there was like an indentation behind me, like as if something is there. And so I tried to turn over to take a closer look, and I could feel this like pressure on my arm, like it couldn't move. And I was like, oh, so I tried to move my leg, same thing on my thigh. And I was like, I was starting to panic, and I was like, okay, so I'm supposed to do something. And, I was on a retreat. So I was like, I'm supposed to be a prayer. Thank you, God, for this food. What am I supposed to say? Because I'm not Catholic. So I was like, what am I supposed to do? And so I just said out loud, what are you? Because like I realized it felt like an arm and a leg that was on top, like an arm that was on top of my arm, a leg that was on top of my leg. And so when I'm in these stressful situations, I just ask them questions. So I just asked out loud, what are you doing? And then there was like nothing. And then I thought, kailangan ba Tagalog ba? So like I translated it. I was like, anong ginagawa mo? And then I heard, it wasn't really a voice, right? It was like, what if the wind meets the creaking wood, meets the shifting hair? Like it was just all these sounds coming together to sort of form a voice, but it was so clear. And the voice was like, hindi ba ito yung gusto mo? And then I just realized the last thing I thought of was Matthew holding me, right? To help me. Right. So it was responding to that desire. And I was like, oh. I didn't know what to say. I just said, I was like thinking, do I say po? Like, or are they older than me? Like, and then I was just like, hindi naman po. Okay naman ako. Sorry na lang sa, opo, okay lang naman ako. And then there's this long pause, and I could still feel the pressure. And I was like starting to panic a little bit. And then I don't think it was that long, but to me, it felt really long. And then
like forever.
I finally, right. And then I finally sort of heard, sorry po sa abala. And then I felt the pressure come off my arm and leg. I saw the bed push back up, and I was like screaming in my head at this point. And then I that sensation when someone's walking away from you or walking towards you, like I could really feel it, even though there was no sound. And then the door opened slightly by itself. And just really slightly, just enough for someone to push themselves out, and then it stayed open. I was just frozen in bed, and I could still hear my classmates talking in that treehouse thing behind me. And I was like, okay. I think it took me like, oh my gosh, it took me so long to get up and close the door, but I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. I was ruined, right? It's like,
right. I mean, sure.
All things considered, it was a really nice ghost, I guess, but
nice guy ghost who's also a little, maybe like creepy in a,
you know what I mean?
Aside from
like
a ghost
nice
way, also problem. In a dude way.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. So I really thought lalaki talaga to. I can't be like, I love the part for my permission.
I know, but I love the part where you tell me that the ghost actually, oops, sorry about that. I misinterpreted your signals.
Right, exactly. I was like, oh my gosh.
Was this like relatively recently? Because you mentioned Matthew, your partner, and so were you adult-ish?
Oh, yeah. Matthew and I have been together since I was 18. So,
right.
19. Yeah.
19.
Oh, yeah. So, So I was in college, I think. I think it was the first year. Was it like it was a retreat kind of situation? Yeah. But like,
so I'm assuming
we've been together
like
for a long time. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So
when you were
we've been together for about 20 years.
Aww. So like when you were in that room, you were alone, I assume?
Yeah, because everybody else was much cooler than me and hanging out and having fun, right? So like they were drinking and stuff, and I was just like being a Lola. I'm just gonna sleep early, so I'm like fresh for tomorrow.
So
So
this was like relatively early in the evening then, like not even like in the dead of the night.
no, I think I went to bed at like 10 or something. So it was still quite early. That's why I really wasn't expecting anything weird.
Right. Where was this retreat house place?
Oh, it was in Cavite. And like Cavite is like a weird place. Like I've heard the stories because my family's from Cavite, but Cavite is really big, right? My family's from General Trias,
Right.
and this was somewhere even further than General Trias. I forgot the exact name, but it was really in the middle of nowhere. I remember this retreat house was built and there was nothing close. Oh, now I remember. Yeah, it was definitely in college because it was the Southville principal's house, and she had all these paintings of herself in her master bedroom, like covering every inch. That's another ghost story or horror story right there. But
That's nice. So Cavite is pretty bustling right now, but I'm assuming like 20 years ago, the development probably wasn't where it is now. So
Yeah.
I'm picturing somewhere like, a house in the middle of nowhere kind of expands on the left and right. Just basically like really quiet, right?
Yeah, I remember the only neighbor we had was a carabao. Like there was nothing else. I couldn't see another, not even like is where my family lives in Cavite. Like there are all these small houses. We're pretty close, but this one was really like in the middle of nowhere. Like I remember I could see a mountain nearby too.
Right. And later on, and you said you couldn't sleep. And did anything else happen after that? Did you talk to anybody about your experience? Maybe your retreat master or something?
Yeah. So I do remember, I actually felt really bad now that I think about it. Because that same day, someone was trying to show me a picture that they took in the area saying like, do you see this? There's like a blur. There's like a ghost. And me and my overly Singaporean kind of brain was like, it's just because you moved your hand a bit, blah, blah, blah. It's just a blur. Da, 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 da. So I was very mean. I apologize to my classmate. I was so obviously wrong. But also, so like the next night we were telling ghost stories because that's what you do. And everybody was like, like half of us were like, just for fun. But then there are other people who were like strangely quiet. You could sense maybe something had happened to them. But I did hear about one story for sure. Like after we were telling these ghost stories, there was one really creepy one about a manananggal. So one of my classmates was like, all right, I'm out. Like after the story, I'm done. I'm going to go back
and
sleep. Yeah, pass, hard pass. And then so like the thing was, so we told the story and then we were all going to go to bed. It was like around 5 a.m. at this point. And then I went downstairs to get water and I found him downstairs, like on the couch. And I was like, oh, but you're like, the boys' dorm is like, outside. Why are you still here?
Not there.
Yeah. And he looked so scared. And I was like, what happened to you? And apparently when he was going down the stairs, and I remember seeing him going down. I remember him pausing for a moment, but I didn't think anything of it. So when he was going down the stairs, he looked like, so from the stairs, you can see like there's a closet that has a mirror like along the front. And then from the mirror, you can see it's reflecting the front door to go out. So he was looking at the mirror and he saw himself and like, every boy with some confidence, he was, just looking at himself.
Hey, good looking.
And then like, hey, what's up, guapo? And then like when he looked at the mirror, the thing is his reflection paused and looked in the opposite direction and he could see the back of his head.
Oh my God.
In the mirror.
What the hell?
And he was like frozen. And then he saw himself in the mirror, right? Walk down the stairs, go to the door, open it, and then turn around and put his hand up to his lips like a shh kind of motion and then left. And so
like his reflection
just
was
left.
Looking at him?
Yes. Just to like,
but it was
through the mirror
already.
Yeah. Looking at him through the mirror.
And then just go like, shh.
Yeah. Like, don't tell anybody. And then the thing is, he was just staring at the mirror. Exactly. And he was just staring at the mirror and he couldn't see himself anymore. Like he just wasn't there anymore.
And he had not moved.
He had not moved the whole time. And then I remember like while we were telling the story, I remember seeing the top of his head because like it's, from the stairs. But once again, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, okay, I wouldn't have thought there's something going on with his reflection. So finally, after a minute or so, like he just went onto the couch and he was too scared to look at the mirror and go past it. So he stayed there until the morning.
Poor thing.
Yeah, because he was like, I was so scared. What if I leave and I find him like in the dorm? What if he's doing something? I don't know. So he was just too scared. That's why he was there the whole time.
Poor thing. Aw, I hope he's okay. But did you guys ever find out what that was? Or did you guys ever find out what that was with you?
Oh my gosh. I wish because by then I had started reading the Tower, but I was nowhere near I had nowhere near the amounts of experience I do now. Like, I wish maybe I should check in on it and see what it was. Because right now, if you ask me, as a professional, what it was, I would, I mean, you really have to check, right? You can't be 100% sure. I'm sure it was someone playing a trick on him. It had to be they're very mischievous and bored, right? Especially because I can imagine all these kids coming together, making a noise. And you're oh, we're gonna I'm hoping that's the case.
A bunch of kids playing.
Yeah. I'm hoping that's the case. It's more likely that was it. It's also possible that he has a lot of hidden, even from himself, right? A lot of subconscious desire or powerful emotion that was trying to get out. So that's another possibility.
He's keeping from himself.
Yeah. So that's another possibility. I mean, the scariest possibility, there is such a thing as a doppelganger, and it is kind of scary because it just sort of feeds off of us. But that one's really rare. Right. So I'm not sure. I've only had one case of that in all of my years as looking into these things. I kind of doubt it, but that's another possibility.
But don't doppelgangers sort of there's this old sort of saying that doppelgangers show up when you're about to die, or they want to take over, or something like that. Yeah, because
and this is the sad part, right? Because sometimes it can be true, someone doesn't want to have their life anymore, and then this being can sense that, right? So you're the perfect prey for them to. And once again, this could be subconscious. Maybe you think you're a happy person and you think you like your life, but
something if you don't want, mine na lang.
Yeah, that's really it. Yeah. So that's legitimately scary, right?
Interesting. Okay, well, do you have any other particular memories that creep you out?
Yeah, I think legitimately the scariest experience I ever had, even just thinking about it now. Because nowadays, if I come across a ghost, I can be pretty calm about it. Only because of experience and stuff, right? But and I know now, I guess it's not just experience. I know now that they can't really hurt you unless you allow them to, right? So it's important to come in with a lot of strong energy and confidence. But every time I think about this one time, I'm really because so early in my tarot reader career, I used to be really dumb. I used to do tarot readings professionally at bars and stuff. I don't do that anymore. Props to any professional reader who does, but I realized I hate it. So I just really didn't like it.
Okay.
But this is when I used to do it.
Why?
Yeah. It's hard. It's so hard to do it at a bar because all these people who are drunk and vulnerable getting a reading from you, that's a really specific headspace that I don't like working with.
Why doesn't she love me?
Yeah, and I get weird questions when am I going to die? I don't have a lot of money. Can I just pay you 20 pesos to get part of the date? I'm no, that's not how it works.
What?
Yeah, so I just no more.
I'm going to give you the month.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Maybe half of the year. What?
Yeah, that's what they think. And I go, that's not how it works. Death is not, it's not nailed down, right? I was oh gosh, no, I can't. So, but this time, so this happened at Nuvo, which used to be at Greenbelt. It got replaced just recently. So, so I was doing readings, and there was I was outside. There was this young woman who came up to me, and I remember, she was pretty, very mestiza. She was very nice, and she was I just wanted to have another reading because I just came from Quiapo and I had a reading with a reader there. And, this happens often, right? They go see a reader from Quiapo or something and they say something that scares them and they want to go to another one just to make sure. And so most of the time I say, it's not true, whatever they told
Second
you.
Opinion.
Yeah. And most of the time it's the problem of being a tarot reader is, I think we have more quotation mark real tarot readers here in the Philippines, but in places like America, there's a lot of con artists, right? Who are trying to build create a lot of fear to get you to pay more, right? So I thought that was the case because the tarot reader in Quiapo asked her to buy all of these bracelets to protect her. And I was like, okay, this is probably a scam. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure, let's do a reading. And as I was doing a reading, I remember like there was this kid who just kept coming up to us. Like he was just sort of like hanging around, and like this used to happen
in the bar.
Like, because we were outside, right? And the way Greenbelt is, like, kids used to sneak in, like, especially poor kids, to beg.
Sure.
Right? So
sure.
It used to be like, and I was used to it. So I thought that was the situation. And I kept telling him, voila, please, I kept looking at the guard, like, guard. I was like, why is the guard doing anything? And then
was the girl seeing it too?
Yeah. And the thing is, it's one of those moments where I assume, because, the heartbreaking thing is when a kid like that shows up, most of us ignore it, right? So I thought she was just ignoring him. Right. And so, because she looked really rich and stuff. So I just thought, okay, so she's that type. That's how she deals with it. And then, so as I was doing the reading, I kept hearing the kid just kept going, ate, ate. And I thought he was talking to me because, she was ignoring him. And I said, voila, voila, right? And then like, because it was so hard to do the reading, like it was 20 minutes in and I was trying to pull it up. And then the card that came up was the 8 of Swords, which is like a woman who's bound by bandages and there's like 8 swords around her. And the next one that came up was the 9 of Swords, which is someone like crying into their hands with these swords above them. And then the next one was the 10 of Swords, which is someone like laying down on the beach with all these swords.
Many swords.
Yeah, and that's like 8, 9, 10. Like that combination, like statistically is very difficult to get in one go. And I was like looking at it going like, what is happening? And then that's when he was like going, ate, ate. And I remember there used to be huge speakers outside Nuvo and I could feel like this sensation, like as if the speaker was kind of on, even though it wasn't. And I thought they were just prepping for a show. And then I said, I'm so sorry. I'm having a hard time concentrating because of the kid. Maybe we can go somewhere else. And then she said, what kid? And I was like,
oh my God.
Yeah, oh my God. I swear. I was like, at first I was upset with her. Do you know what I mean? I was like, are you that mean that you're just going to pretend he's not there? I was so ready to get mad at her. And I was like that. And I noticed every time I tried to look at him, he would just always be at the corner of my eye. And so when I tried to look straight at him, all I saw was the shadow. And then he started screaming, ate, ate, at me. And then I heard, like, at the time, I didn't understand what I heard, right? I just heard this crashing sound. And I freaked out, like I stood up and I was like, okay, let's just go inside. Let's just go inside. And he kept saying, ate, 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 over and over again. I was like, let's just go inside. And I was like, I don't even know. What if he follows us inside? Like, I was on the verge of crying. I was really like so terrified. And like, I had never had an experience like that before or since, I have to say. So I was really like, I was just like on the verge of crying. And she was like, are you okay? Are you all right? And I was like, oh, I'm not okay. How are you okay? And so he went in and I was and I was like, okay, you have to be honest with me. You didn't hear or see anything out there. Like there was no chat. And she was like, no, and then she started to get scared, right? And I was like, oh no, you know what? It was just my imagination. I was like, oh gosh, please don't get scared. Because she looked like she was going to start panicking. And I was like, okay, let's just finish the reading. It was just my imagination. I'm just very tired. I've just had a lot of readings. I still felt like crying the whole time, by the way. So we sat down and then the next card I pulled was death. And like, I really have to say, normally when you pull the death card, it's not physical death. It's very rarely physical death. And then the next card was the moon. Like I still remember which deck I was using. I still remember the card combination because it was and the moon is like things that are hidden from you, things that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
Right. And then so like nowadays when I read, I see things more clearly, but like because it's like a skill you develop. But back then I just saw flashes. And so I saw her, and this was one of the rare times it was happening. Like now I'm used to it, but back then it was really rare. Most of the time I was just depending on the meaning of the cards. And then so when I pulled the moon card, I saw her really drunk. I saw her get into a car. I saw her driving, and then there was a kid in front of her that she hit. And it was all just like, but it was just bits and pieces, right? And then I heard that same crashing sound. that I heard when I saw him. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to tell you what I saw. You don't have to believe me. I don't know if it's true, but this is what I saw. And I said, I think you hit a kid and I think you killed him. And I think he doesn't know that he's dead. And he's very scared. Yeah. And I was like, he's really scared. Aww. And he's really, and I was still on the verge of crying because I could sense he was outside. I could sense he was still outside. And she was like, and then she started breaking down and crying. And she said, I've been dreaming about it. I thought it was just a bad dream, but I keep having the dream. And something did happen to the car. I did hit something. I thought I just hit I guess she thought she hit something that wasn't a person. And she was like, what should I do? And I was like, I was really hitting my limit as a tarot reader at the time. Like I couldn't, nowadays I can come up with specific stuff. But back then I was like, and I was also really on the verge of breaking down because I was just so scared.
Sure.
So I was like, I won't charge you for today. I have a name of a professional tarot reader you can go to. I think they can provide you the details. They've had more experience with this specific sort of stuff, so they can help you. She still insisted on paying me. She was really nice. She overpaid me even. Oh my gosh. And then, so after that, she went to see that other tarot reader who I talked to after. And the tarot reader gave her an exact address, gave her the name of the family, and she had to go and it was true. Like this kid had died. He was hit by a car, and they thought it was a runaway. It was a hit and run, right? They thought the driver had just run off. So she paid for everything. She tried to make amends, and then that's when the kids stopped coming by after that happened.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's my most harrowing, really intense experience. I have to stress it has never been that bad since then.
So, what had the girl who had asked for the reading heard from the Quiapo reader?
Yeah, because the Quiapo reader, I think, so to be fair to that Quiapo reader, I think she was legit. But she was just saying things like, there's a spirit following you. There's a spirit following you. You have to get these bracelets so that he can't follow you anymore. Well, I mean, obviously the bracelets didn't really work. It's like he was still there. But then again, once again, to be fair, I don't know, because maybe it was more powerful, like the karma between them, right? And it went through whatever protections. I mean, because he was, killed. So that's really strong ass karma right there.
But that's so sad, though.
Mm-hmm.
And after she had sort of gone to the family and made amends, it just stopped.
Yeah, because he knew he was dead and he could move on now. So because before that he didn't, because he was just confused. That's why he was just screaming out there over and over again, because the only thing he could see was her. Right. And he was like, why am I stuck here? Why am I trapped? What is happening? I was just walking and
you're the only person I can see and you're not minding me.
Exactly. So that's why he was so, and then by the time she saw me, it had been a week. Right. So she had been having those dreams for a week. So this kid must have been terrified.
Poor thing. Both of them, honestly.
Yeah. It was just a bad situation. I was thinking, gosh, if she hadn't found someone who could get her those details. But, that's why I really believe that the universe is always going to try to help us, because it would be too sad if that went on any longer.
Right. So you mentioned that throughout, your professional tarot career, you've, every so often would encounter one of these things. Have you actually, just to flip the mood a little bit, have you encountered a situation where you where you had a reading and maybe something came up that was kind of actually a bit funny?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. It happens a lot. I had a client, this happens a lot. This is 90% of the ghost cases that I supposedly get. They think it's a really scary ghost. So the thing in common is there are a few things in common. Number one, they usually live in an apartment, right? And number two, it's a pretty new apartment.
Okay.
It's just been newly built or something along those lines. And number three, they have to have someone living with them who really is like overly scared of ghosts. Like if those three things combine, like if the moment they tell me that, I'm like, okay, it's probably a duende. Because what happens is usually they ask me to come over because they're so scared. So I come over and I do the reading and I check and I'm like, yeah, it's a family of duende who have been uprooted, right? Because they were just like, no, minding their own business. And suddenly there is a building, there's a condo that just cave. And for them, it's very fast.
You came into their home.
Yeah, because like duende, these elementals, they're around for years and years. Like to them, a year or two is just like a month, right? Or a week. Like
a blip.
It's just like so quick. So they're just there one moment, and then the next moment they're like, "Where is my tree? Like, where is my ground? I'm so high." Like, so they're lost, right? They're like, so usually they just like stay in the closet. They hide in the cupboard. Usually it's a kitchen because they love food, right? So usually they just hide in the kitchen.
Hey.
And then they're like, okay, I guess we'll just stay here. I guess this is fine. This is fine. This is okay. You know, we get food. It's all right.
We've got some provisions.
Yes, that's okay. Because like, I mean, duende don't eat the same way we do, but they eat the thought of food, if that makes sense. It's very hard to describe. But like in Krispy Kreme, there's a lot of duende hanging out because they love the sugar, right? So like every Krispy Kreme, really? Yeah. So every Krispy Kreme where they have like all that sugar dripping down, you can, if you use the site, you can see all these duende with their mouths open, going like just like chugging.
That's so funny.
On the sugar. Yeah, it's really true. So like, I've heard this from numerous people.
You and me both, Mr. Duende.
Right? Like I was like, that is such a good idea. I want to try that so bad. But yeah, so I'll usually find the duende, and then usually it's someone who's like, so it's always like someone will be in the kitchen because, you know, that's usually where the duende are. And then they'll be working on something and then the glass will fall and like accidents happen, right? Like you don't realize the glass was too close. And then by the time you left, it fell on its own because you had left it there and you didn't realize, right? And gravity did the work for you. So, but then the thing is, this person will think, oh my gosh, it's a ghost. Like it's a ghost. We're haunted. You know, and the person will keep thinking it and keep talking about it and keep saying it's a ghost. And the duende are like, oh, are we playing a game? Because like they don't.
I can be that ghost.
Yeah, because they don't. Most duende do not understand emotions the way we do, right? It's like they don't realize the difference between fear and joy and stuff like that. Like any strong emotion is the same to them. So they think, oh, so we're playing a game. I will be whatever you want me to be. So they start to take on aspects of the ghost that they think the person wants to see, right? And then so they're feeding off of each other, right? The duende starts becoming more ghost-like and starts doing what the person wants, and the person starts being more scared, feeding it more to the duende. So it's this like cycle, right? And then that's why it usually starts with just one person seeing it, and then more people start to see it because the person starts to like really convince everybody else what's happening. And then it just spreads. So usually all I have to do is I just have to open the covers and I go, tama na po. I just have to explain to them, okay, so humans are weird. We don't like being scared. And then the conversation's almost always the same. They're like, but they wanted to be scared. I was like, I know that's what they thought they wanted, but they don't want it. So instead, why don't we do this? And they're like, what? But, you know, like they're so confused, right? They're just like, I was just playing the game. Like I was following their rules, right? They're just like, I don't understand. Like, okay, I get it. And I was like, look, why didn't you come with me? I will take you to a park and you can go be back with the tree, right? Mm-hmm. And I have a few. So like here in Makati, for example, where I tend to do a lot of my readings, we don't have a lot of parks. So I have had to put a lot of them in the same parks. So there's like huge colonies of duende and tigbalang and other things. So
honestly, what I'm getting and what I'm taking from your story is that when something creepy happens to me, I just keep thinking unicorn. And maybe they'll turn into a unicorn.
Yeah. No, but that's super powerful. And it's very true. Yeah. Because like, you know, like ghosts are really scary to us because of like movies we've watched and stuff like that. But the truth is like we are more powerful because like we're both spirit and body, right? So we can program what we want, right? I've had people who literally, I mean, unicorns are like a whole other thing that are a possibility, but I have come across people who created similar things from what they were afraid of. They were like, I'm just gonna I once came across a duende that had to be forced to look like what's his name? Batibot? Tama ba? Like because like the person was
Bong Bagong?
yeah, there. Yeah, that's the one. Because they were like, I don't want to see a ghost. I don't want it to be a ghost. So it's gonna be this. It's gonna be that. And the duende was like, okay. Just took on that form.
Sure, I'll be Bong Bagong for
yes.
you. If I imagine it to be a giant mound of money, will that work?
Oh, well, the good news is, like there are lots of different duende, like in the same way there are lots of different people, right? But the duende who really like helping humans, they're really good at helping you get money. They're really good at helping you like with money, health, protection of the home. I mean, there's a reason it's usually duende, not capra, right? Like capra, I've only talked to two because most capra are like, screw humans, I hate them. So like they will not bother hanging.
They're like the grumpy old dads of the elemental.
It's true. I've really only come across so few because they really don't like people. And duende love people. So that's usually
in your experiences with the capra, like, no, this is so interesting. But like, what have they been like?
Oh gosh, like usually they will not leave the tree that they're attached to. I can't even really get a good look at them most of the time. And then when I talk to them, it's like pulling teeth. It's like a duende, you talk to them a little and they're like, just like a mile a minute. But a capra,
let me tell you all the things.
Yeah. But a capra is like 2 words, 3 words, is
no.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right. Like, cause I went to there was a problem with, they were trying to move. They were trying to sell the house and bad things kept happening. And it turned out because the capra was like, no, I want this to stay as it is.
You're not moving.
Yeah, you're not moving. You're not going to sell this. And because the people who wanted to move in, they wanted to like completely renovate everything. And the capra knew that. And the capra was like, no, screw that. Right. So they kept ruining like everything that they could. So when I talked to them about it, I was like, is there a way we could work? No. Well, maybe if I help you, no. It's like, well, so it took a lot. I'd usually have to depend on Reiki and I had to ask the angels to help me out at that point. I'd usually have to work with someone else to talk to the capra because the capra is like, I don't care that you can talk to us. You're still a human and I don't want to talk to you, Jammi. So it's really that kind of energy.
I mean, on some level, I get this guy on like a bad day. I get this guy.
Right? So I can't blame them, right? Like, a lot of us humans are crap. So I can't blame the average capra. You know what I mean?
So that's really interesting. So you're basically, are you saying that you have a lot more experience with like elementals and duendes and capras and maybe like fairies or something?
Yeah. Like the what?
Then, let's say ghosts?
Yeah. It's like ghosts, like actual person who is left behind, unable to move on. That is so rare. Like I've come across that one kid, like I talked to you about, who was trapped. Usually there's a lot of sadness, right? Like if that happens, it's so sad. That's why they can't leave. So like if I had to put a number to it, because right now I'm focused on game design, but when I was doing the Reiki tarot stuff full time, I had like maybe 5 clients a week, right? So I think that's easily like a few hundred. So out of those few hundred over the years, it's only been probably 10 cases of a real like ghost who's trapped. That's been the number. And it's usually like a really sad, super sad story. So a lot of the time, if it's not a duende, if it's not, usually it's a duende, right? Like the Wadas don't bother. They're not going to bother pretending to help out. They do other things.
They're just going to be pretty over there.
Yeah. The Wada are just like, are you taking care of the water? Are you spraying with the water? That's usually what the Wada care about, right? Understandably. So, like,
excuse me, you can't do that, sir.
Like, excuse me, the flowers. So usually that's what they worry about. But other times, I have come across where like a really powerful emotion or memory is left behind by someone who did die. So it's not the person anymore, but it's like a residue. It's like an emotional residue. So like, and the problem is
like an echo.
Yeah. And the problem with those though is that they can become dangerous because if someone keeps feeding them similar energy over the years, they get more and more powerful, right? And they sort of like, how like how you can program, how you can talk to Google, right? You can program things. It's not the same as real artificial intelligence, right? You can just program it a lot of things and it'll sound like a real person, but it's not a real person. It's kind of like that. So you keep feeding it all of these, and usually it's negative emotions, right? Because those are very powerful. So you keep feeding it negative emotions. I've come across those that have been around for years. Like they've been around for like 50, 60, 100 years. And then those ones can get kind of scary because like they're very intimidating, but they're super easy to get rid of. So it's not really like, the problem I have is that when I try to explain to my clients how easy it is to get rid of it, they don't want to believe me. They're like, no, I've seen the movies. It has to be like really. And so if they don't believe me, it's creating a tether and an anchor and that thing won't leave. So it's kind of, I sometimes have to make it sound more complicated. I sometimes have to give them extra steps to do just so that they'll believe me and it'll go away.
That's so funny.
Yeah, like I sometimes have to say things like, yes, have a priest come over. Yes, take this water,
do all the things,
save it for 7 days, do this, do that. Like I have to list, and it's their angels telling me that. The angels are like, okay, you have to say this, or they're not going to believe you. So just give them this 12-point list.
That's so funny. Why would people not want the easy, more direct path?
Because most of the time we don't believe in it. We don't believe that things can be simple, right? We. And I think, it's because of the stories we tell ourselves. It's the stories we see in the movies. Like we really believe it has to be difficult and complicated. So yeah. I also had one time...
Humans.
Yeah, I had one time a friend was like, she had this difficulty where her roommate had gotten a duende to fall in love with her. And so the duende was doing stuff like leaving ants in her clothes and her food. And like...
little ant offerings.
Yeah, because ants are like a sign of abundance and love and treasure, right? So, and it would be so weird because in the closet, even if their clothes are right next to each other, it's only hers that are attacked by the ants. Even if the food is right next to each other, it's only her food that's attacked, and all these other things. And so, compared to ghosts, like with elementals, they like all these little extra steps and rituals, right? So I was like, oh gosh, we have to do, and this is early on. I had just learned Reiki. I think nowadays I could help it and have it be simpler. But back then I was like, oh, there are a lot of steps we have to do. And she has to do it or else the duende won't go away. Like if you do it, it's not going to matter because he's not in love with you. And my friend was like, but she doesn't believe in any of this. So like, what do we, so we have to, it was so funny.
Do you want the ants to stop or not?
Yeah. She would just bring in exterminators who wouldn't do anything. So instead, she had to sort of like get her friends to do all of these things one by one without realizing what she was doing.
I mean, that's a helpful friend.
Yeah.
Just looking out for your best interest.
Yeah. And it worked. He went away. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I read the signals wrong. Ayan na naman, right? Like, I mean, it's such a typical, even in the supernatural world, it happens. There are mixed signals. Well, not mixed signals. Misinterpretation.
Right. So, some of our listeners may be curious and asking for a friend, i.e. myself. You said it was relatively easy to get rid of, ghosts or things that may mean you harm.
Mm-hmm.
Just how easy is it?
Oh, yeah.
/ what do I have to do if something pretty weird happens to me?
Yeah. Okay. So it's really just as simple as you absolutely believing and thinking you are not allowed in this space and you cannot be here. End of story. So if I just say that, people are like, what? But the ghost will just come in if it wants to. I'm like, no, it can't. Because if you really just absolutely believe this is my space and you cannot enter, that's it. Right. So that's why things like prayer can be powerful, not because, I don't want to step on anyone's faith, right? Like your connection to God or what have you. But that's why prayer is so powerful, because the prayer gives you permission to believe that this is my space and you cannot enter it. But that's why there are those ghost stories of the ghost repeating back the prayer to people, because these are people who are saying the prayer, but they don't believe it. So they're like saying, Holy Mary, Mother of God, but they're just like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. They're going to get me. They're going to get me. And then so that's why they'll repeat it back to you, because they're repeating back your lack of faith.
In a sort of like mocking way.
Yeah. That's where those stories come from. But if it's really like, no, I'm just going to, that's why like true prayer can be so powerful. Like I know Like when politicians say like, oh, I'm sending you prayers, it's so useless. Like they're not really helping. But like
thoughts and prayers.
But real prayer, like the real power of anything, not prayer, not just like mantras, prayers, like well wishes, as long as it's really, really coming from the heart, fully meant, coming from the soul, it's so powerful. It's like really, really powerful. So that's why these rituals can be important, not because we really need them, but because they give us permission to build up that belief, right? So if you believe I have to put salt in the corner, I have to hang this rosary, or I have to light the sage, like it's really you lending your own energy, your own soul, your own heart to it. And like with things like
to the intention.
Yeah. And with things like sage, right? Because we've been using it for like so long across so many cultures. It's so inherently powerful because it carries all of that energy from all of these people. So that's why that tends to, so you just have to give it a little and then the sage can do the rest, right? But most of the time.
So it's like collective belief.
Yes. Because it's really powerful that way. Like our collective belief. I mean, like personally, I'm not religious. Like I said, I'm not Catholic or anything, but the more I experience this, the more I can understand, oh, that's why it really works for some people, right? Because you were collectively pulling your belief and your energy together. But that's also why it can be dangerous when it's like really, false. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really funny that you say that because I think I've actually inadvertently done exactly what you said at one point in time. I don't know if I've actually told this story on this podcast before, but in the house that I was living in at the time, it was our family home. And I was, burning the midnight oil, just studying for an accounting test that I was about to fail. And so, I was just very desperately like, okay, all right, calculate. Oh no, okay, balance the balance sheet. Mm-hmm. And like, I was facing the window, and then my back was to like the rest of the room. And then I just felt really, really weird. And like all the hairs on my body just start standing up. And like, I feel not alone. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I don't even like turn around to confirm. But I'm just so stressed for like my test the next day. And it's like 4 or 5 a.m. and I just have like 3 more hours to study. So I literally just go out loud. Like I slam my desk and I go, can you not?
Yeah. Perfect.
Like not right now.
Perfect.
And it literally stopped. Like the creepy feeling stopped. And I just went on to study until the sun came up, did as normal, put on the clothes and like went to school. Mm-hmm. And it actually never happened again.
Yeah, because you really set your boundaries and it was like, all right, this place is off limits.
Yeah, go bother someone else who's not studying for a test, okay? Yeah. Are you going to help me pass accounting? I don't think so.
And and it's like that really fits it in, right? Because the reason it was drawn to you in the first place was because you were like giving off these strong emotions of like desperation and worry and anxiety and, concentration. So it was like, oh yes, all this delicious fear energy I can feed on. And then right? And then you were like, no. So like, especially if it's, if there's like a strong sound that accompanies it, like a slam or a clap or whatever, it's not that the sound is important, but all of your energy is like packed into it and then released into the sound. If that makes sense, right? So like, that's why like gongs and all bells, like they're so important in religion because like it gathers all that energy and this releases it. So that's why it worked perfectly. Like
that's
absolutely.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, duly noted. I'm gonna like grab a drum or a tambourine and just be like, no.
Yeah. Drums are super effective. Oh my gosh, you can get them on Amazon. You can get a shamanic drum for like 2,000, 3,000 pesos, and it's super effective.
I do know of like some stories where, like there are some people who are so used to it who like if there would be a gathering or something and then something weird starts happening, they would just like either clap or like go like, "Hui, dominant."
Yeah, exactly. Because it works. Yeah, it really works. But the thing is, let's say someone's doing that. If there's someone who's like thinking it's not going to work, and their anxiety is more powerful, it can override it, right? So like, depending on the person. That's why like when I do a ghost clearing or whatever, I have to explain to them, if there is even one person in your house that still wants this ghost to be around, it will come back. This duende will come back, like put on a show again. So like, or worse, if it's a real
I don't know
ghost,
if it actually left my home. I don't know if it left my home or my room, but the house stayed creepy, but my room was pretty livable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
There was also this one time, sorry, I'm telling the stories now.
No, this is good.
But like there was also this one time, it was in that same room, and me being from a religious household, of course my mom hangs like little crosses, like little metal wood crosses on every door, as mothers do. Mm-hmm. And I usually sleep in my room with my dog at the time, Juju, God rest her beautiful soul. Mm-hmm. And just sleeping, and then I wake up and there's this like loud crash on the floor, and I see Juju by the door, barking at the door. And I'm like, at first I'm like looking, so I confirmed that the dog is fine, and then I'm looking around to see where the crash came from, because hey, maybe she like tipped off something or like pushed something to the floor. And I actually look towards the door eventually, and I see that it's the cross on the floor, and it had fallen down. Ooh. And then, so I don't know what was up with that, and the dog was barking at the door. So me naman, I'm just like, well, I stared at it for a good, what felt like forever, but it was probably like 10 seconds. And I was just like, what to do? Fight or flee? If I were to fight, what do I fight? If I flee, where do I flee? Because if it's out the door, that's not a good place to go. And so eventually I just get up, grab the dog under my arm, get the cross and like hang it back up. Because like the hook was still very much there, and I was like jiggling the hook. No, the hook's fine. So I just put it back on, and then I like go to bed, and I fall asleep eventually, and then like nothing of the sort ever happens again.
Right. Yeah. So most likely, like once again, like we'd have to double check, but no matter what it is, it was something testing you, right? It was something going like, oh, is she going to give us more of her fear? Like, is she going to feed us more? And since you were like, I'm just going to put this back up and I'm just going to go back to sleep.
Well, like, don't get me wrong. I was like super freaked out. But, you know.
Yeah. But you were choosing. Yeah. And you were just choosing to like, yeah, you know, that's another good point, right? Because fear is like a natural thing. We can't help it. But like, if you let it take control, that's when it can get really problematic, right? So, because you chose to just go about normally. And this is why, like, okay, so like a lot of spiritual psychics are like going to not agree with me on this point. But I really do believe that because there are those who are like, we're going to go fight it, right? We're going to find these ghosts and we're just going to fight it, right? And they're very like aggressive, and they're like, we're going to tear your spirit apart, and you know, blah, blah, blah. But you're still feeding it, right? You're still feeding it a lot of negative energy. So like, sure, you can fight it if you think that's what you need to do, and that's why it will work, because you think that you need to fight, right? But really, you're just feeding it more energy and making it more complicated and last longer. But if you just give it a very, like, I remember there was this really powerful psychic I met. She would just like go up to the spirit or, you know, whatever it was, and she would just ask one question. She would just be like, is this where you really want to be?
Oh, wow.
And then, it's so powerful, even as a human, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if you ask a human that question.
I feel personally asked by this question.
Right. And then so always the answer would be, no, I want to be somewhere else. And then she would say, I can help you get there. I will help you get to this better place for you. And then that's it. Like, she would just help them leave. And so I still do that to this day. Like, it's so powerful, and I follow through with it. You know, and then but you basically putting that cross back up, that's you just saying, I know you think you want to be here, but you can't be here. Like, you just, you know, I'm putting it back up.
I'm glad it sent those messages. Because, like, honestly,
yeah.
Even if I'm not religious myself, I'm not going to let a cross stay on the floor. So
yeah, poor Jesus, right?
Right. I mean, the poor guy has already been crucified.
Yeah. So.
No, but that's really interesting, because that again speaks to another experience I had, and this one is actually at the studio. Matthew may not know this yet.
Oh,
so for our listeners, Matthew is Jammi's partner. And Matthew is also the host of another podcast that Big Baby Studios, the studio that puts out these podcasts, do. He co-hosts 3 Point Landing, and that show is about gaming and geeky things. It's wonderful. Check it out. But I don't think he knows that this happened. It's like one of those late nights at the studio, and we're just sort of closing up because, recordings usually happen at night and they finish maybe like 2, 3 a.m. or so. And so we're packing up, we're closing up, and PV, our engineer, was just like upstairs, just grabbing a bunch of clothes to get ready to leave. And I'm on the couch in the common room where usually people waiting around or just hanging out, hang out and play like PS4 or like have a bunch of laughs and have some food. I'm there, I'm alone because everybody had already left. And the door to the studio are like these heavy glass sliding doors that's rimmed by like those metal like rims. And then the railings are also metal. So when you open them, there's like a pretty metal on metal like scratching sound.
Ooh.
And I'm just lying down on the couch, like scrolling on my phone, waiting to leave. And the door kind of like scratches open, like, and I'm just staring at it because beyond that is like a really dark living room. And I'm staring at it, and it was the sound I heard, but the only thing I saw was just like the door sort of, the reflection on the glass just sort of moving back and forth from after the door had moved.
Right.
So I was just like, and then I go through that whole fight or flee, what seems like forever, but was probably like 10, 15 seconds, and just stare at the door. And I'm like, I could choose to freak out now. Or do something calmly and productively to get myself out of here.
Right.
And so I end up calling PV on the phone, and even if he's just upstairs, and I'm just like, baba ka na, like come down, like now, and don't put down the phone. Just come down and don't put down the phone, huh? So he goes down with the phone still on him, and then he's like, "What's happening?" And I'm just like, "No, we gotta go, out, let's go, like turn off everything, let's go." And we go, and he's like, "What's happening?" And I'm like, "I will tell you when we are a good 3 blocks away or something."
Yeah.
And so I did. And he's just like, Pasha, that's probably, you're just tired or something. And I'm just like, no. That I saw that thing. That was not cool. And like the first thing that popped into my head was, okay, how can we be productive about this? Because this is not okay.
Yeah.
So I end up calling my mom, who calls her priest, who happenstance has it, could come over the next day.
Oh, okay.
And we have, it was very like fortuitous and very like quickly happening. And like, and the messages to my mom was like, "Hey mom, so our studio, I think we have a problem. And how can I fix this?" So the priest comes over and sort of blesses everything and sort of tells us what's going on.
Ooh.
And really interestingly enough, he knows that I'm not religious, so he kind of like explained it in a language that I could understand, which is basically,
that's nice of him, yeah.
As a studio. Yeah, it was super nice. Basically that because it's a studio, a lot of people come through and like maybe musicians, artists, creatives, and whatever they're going through.
Yeah.
When they play music or when they do their art, it's sort of a release.
Yeah.
And that sort of gets released into the space, which attracts, whether positive or negative, it's strong emotions, right? If someone's singing a really sad song, the best way to get it on record is to feel those feels, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So he was saying that it's a really big attraction, the energy. So it's just like every once in a while, you gotta sort of cleanse the space, bring in a lot of like really good energy, try to bring around people who are really positive, and sort of just every once in a while, like just be very like coexisty with it.
Right.
Like you can be over there, I can be over here. It's all good. It's all cool. And yeah, well, he did give us like some blessed salt to like put around the area.
Right.
But after that advice and sort of after that session, it's been all good.
Yeah.
I think like nothing's really happened since. Actually, nothing's happened since, which is really great.
No, but that sounds really legit. Like that's something that I have said before for a session or when I go visit. Like it's really true. Musicians are like, especially powerful beacons and conduits, because.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Cause like, so how do I describe this? The pathway that I use to get information from the angels and spirit and stuff like that, that is the same pathway musicians use to get inspiration.
Okay.
Yeah. So musicians are psychics in a way, right? Like that's why music like really connects to us. That's why the really successful musicians, like we can all relate because they're really pulling in from what connects us, right? So musicians a lot of time, they don't realize that they're just like beacons of like powerful emotions. And these entities are like, I'm so hungry. They're just like, nom, loneliness. So that really does tend to happen. And, though I will say salt, like, I don't know why it really is effective. Like one of the things I can never get over, especially is Himalayan salt. Like it's the pink salt, right? Like my Singaporean logical brain is like, it's just pink salt. But it really works.
It's pretty.
It really works. It's really effective.
Really?
I don't know. Like spiritually, my angels keep explaining that it really is the best, but I've never found a logical reason. But it really does work. It really is.
I like how there's a particular brand that's more effective than brand B.
Yeah. Because like this pink salt, because like when it starts to fade in color, it's done. Like, that you have to throw that salt out because it's sucked in all the negative energy. So like if you get like those big chunks, especially when they start to go pale, you're like, all right, I need to put in new stuff. And like with normal rock salt, it's a little harder to tell when it's used up. So, but yeah, I don't know.
I feel the urge to check my Himalayan salt grinder now. I mean, I usually use it for food, but I mean, this is going to be a really great barometer.
Yeah. You could just get some of it and put it like in a little bowl and put it in a corner. Cause like stuff tends to collect in corners, dirt, dust, emotions, entities. Like, so you can just put it in the corner.
Cat hair.
Yeah. It all goes to the same corner.
Well, all right. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Jammi. Thanks for all the great advice. Is there anything you'd like to share with the great people of the internet? What are you doing right now? What are you up to?
Yeah. So even though I spend most of the time talking about my experience as a tarot reader and Reiki shaman, actually for the last year, I've also been really working hard on being a game designer. So I make tabletop role-playing games. It's kind of like video games, except with your imagination and your friends. I like it. I like video games, but I secretly like TTRPGs better. That's hard to choose. But that being said, I actually have written a few games about ghosts. Now that I think about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one called Our Haunt, which is about you wake up as a ghost. You've lost most of your memories. Are you going to create a new family or are you going to try to recover your memories? I also have one called The Unmasked, which is about ghosts trying to finish their business before they move on, but you're running out of time. So I have a few of those. You can check them out at temporalhiccup.itch.io. Temporal is in TEMPORAL hiccup. And I also have a Patreon, Sword Queen Games. That's, I publish my games under that name. It's nothing fancy or real. I just like calling it Sword Queen Games based on the tarot. So you can find that at patreon.com/Sword Queen Games.
Awesome. Thanks so much again, Jammi. So this has been Grimcast Manila with your host, Antoinette. You can find more episodes on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and everywhere you find your podcasts. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Grimcast Manila. Grimcast Manila is a podcast of creepy stories from around the metro and is produced, recorded, and distributed by Big Baby Studios. Find out more about the other shows on Big Baby at itsabigbaby.com or facebook.com/itsabigbaby. Catch you next time.